Hello, 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 hello. Fix the lighting. I'm trying, whatever. All right. Hello, hello. Welcome. Welcome, one and all. I can like hear Stephen Colbert in my head for some reason. In here, out there, everywhere. Um, Mercury. Maybe that's why this is about Mercury. Someone who's, yeah. Okay. Okay, that works for me. So this is a quick video about out of bounds and combust and Mercury. Okay, we're going to talk about it, and it's going to be relevant because as the recording this in November, and Mercury is already out of bounds. So being that it's already out of bounds, that means, well, what does it mean? Yeah, it means it acts more extreme. Think about it. It's like boom, it's off the charts. So when I say out of bounds, it's off the chart, right? Mercury is the mind. It's the way I think. It's the way I talk and communicate. All right. It's the thoughts that you keep in your head. And it is also not necessarily just the words that you speak, but Mercury absolutely is like the attitude involved with it. So it's not what they say, but how they say it, that type of thing. All of that falls into the Mercury realm. Okay. Obviously, feelings and emotions get involved, but depending upon how your Mercury's functioning, it could be impaired by your emotions for sure, right? Like when you feel good, people can tell. When you don't feel good, people can tell. So Mercury can have a catitude or whatever, an attitude. Mercury goes through when people express, when they communicate, we can pick up on sometimes, maybe not the details of what's going on, but like, okay, something's off. Something is not quite right. Right. And so Mercury out of bounds means it goes extreme. It's off the charts. So our mind not wanting to shut off the thinking, the talking, the communicating, the need for like to have somebody around just so you can like chitter chatter. And it may not even be like maybe you've caught yourself doing this. I'm going to show you the chart in a second. Let me go find my dates again. I have the chart. Yeah. So here's how this all began. Here's how this began. November 15th, depending upon where you will live, November 15th, November 16th, Mercury got to about 8 degrees of Sagittarius. And at the 8 degrees of Sagittarius is when Mercury went out of bounds. So if you think back, or if you have your chart and you look at your chart and you're like, okay, you can see, do you have anything at the 8 degrees in Saggy? Or better yet, do you have anything angling up? Anything squaring? Like, do you have something in Pisces or Virgo at the 8 degrees? Because Mercury went out of bounds, right? And so if it went out of bounds that day, and that 8 degrees then creates a square to the other mutable signs. You get it? 8 degrees Mercury up here, like right where my eyeball is, that's Mercury. And so it squares if you have something here at 8 in Pisces, and squares if you have something here in Virgo at 8. So for some folks, because squares are usually stress and tension, and we're just like, oh shit, like they're usually points where things happen, and we kind of have to like either a closed door or something didn't happen, like we had a plan and it didn't happen. Mercury is traveling, it is making plans, it is the schedule, it is the calendars, it is something possibly suddenly happening, and maybe being very flexible, maybe doing something like by seat of the pants, spur of the moment type of thing, because it is Mercury in Sagittarius. So I want to travel, I want to explore, I want to really immerse myself in freedom. So I will go on an adventure, even if it means I'm just going to a new store in my neighborhood, Mercury, my neighborhood, in the car, right? Saggy would prefer to get on the plane and travel, Sagittarius, right? And so Mercury being out of bounds, yes, Mercury being out of bounds, going extreme, this, let me get the chart up here real quick. I have it. Where is it? There we go. Bam. All right. Sweet. Sweet Jesus. There it is. So the Mercury going out of bounds, and there's the date again. Yeah, right there. You got Mercury on the 15th, 16th, depending upon where you live in the world. going out of bounds. All right. So we're going to put red there, right? And I'll just do like the O and the O and a B. And they're kind of weird, but that's okay. Because when things go out of bound, especially the mind and the talking and our ideas, and, like to me, it's almost as though you could probably even track to see, like, were you seeking and searching out something you hadn't done before? Because think adventure. Most people don't connect the word adventure with the same old, right? Spice it up a little bit. Mercury loves variety, loves variety. So being in Sagittarius really thirsty for learning, but so Mercury's a learner for sure. But Sagittarius like, well, let's push it beyond the normal. Let's go further. Let's go, off the planet, right? Off the grid, even, because it's Mercury. Mercury, Sagittarius is like traveling, but overseas. Like I can go over oceans, or if my Mars kicks into gear with the Saggy energy, I can go off the planet, right? I'm willing to go that far. The astronaut type of energy, all for the adventure and for seeking, right? And think about it. Think about how it must feel to actually have that journey. Like if you were in a spaceship and you like literally got to go off the planet and be up there into that realm beyond that border that they consider literally out of space. You can take those luxury, super expensive trips with who are those companies? I can't even remember anymore, but something galactic. And then the other one is Bezos has a company, and does Musk do it too? I don't actually, that's weird. I don't think Musk does that. I mean, SpaceX, I guess, is, busy doing other things, satellites and whatnot and stuff with NASA. So they have more pressing issues at hand. But think of how freeing and how, I mean, gosh, talk about going where no man has gone before, although we can't really say that anymore, right? But if you were to come back from that trip and talk to people, you could very likely be one of very few who can say, yeah, I've been up there. I forget what they call it. There's a boundary around the planet, literally, where once you reach that point, it's considered, okay, you're in outer space. And then they just turn around and come right back down. And that's why the trips are so fast, because they're not like going beyond that point. They're going just far enough to get there and to say, okay, you went to space. You experienced it. A very glamorous, well, I shouldn't say glamorous, but just like an out of this world type of a trip. So this out of bounds energy in Sagittarius kind of follows in line with that, but it being the traveler and the seeker and the learner, somebody who wants to learn, but also communicate. Have you found yourself almost thirsty to have conversations with people, and not so much like as if it's like got to be about really deep, meaningful stuff, but just to like banter, just to have that exchange of information, even, right? So maybe you're doing more of this, right? Maybe somebody's actually going online, participating, online more on the different social platforms, maybe even joining in chats on live streams or whatnot, right? So that can be that. And so that began on the 15th, 16th, depending upon where you are in the world. Like, some of you are a day ahead of me. I'm in the US, I'm in Central Time Zone. Now, what is the other thing we need to know? The other thing we need to know is, when does the out of bound energy end? Because Mercury is extreme when it's out of bounds. So we are thinking a little bit more extreme. We're communicating a little bit more extreme, right? Meaning we might be adventuring out to talk about things or to learn about things that we hadn't considered before, or that we only considered, but yet never talked about it or acted upon it. You follow? The mind, it's definitely a mind trip, literally, Mercury in Sagittarius, right? So some of you might, use this in a different way, right? Whether it's literally online learning, whether it's going to, some people could do astral traveling, right? Sitting down, doing the meditation, astral traveling, Mercury and the mind in Saggy. It extends all the way until the 13th. So it's about a month. It's just short of 30 days, just short of 30 days by like 2 days, right? A day or two. just short of 30 days that Mercury is out of bounds. Now, what's really interesting, and the reason I did this video, because I really wasn't even I wasn't gonna do this video for a Mercury out of bounds, because to me, when Mercury goes into Saggy, well, it's kind of already out of bounds, right? Because Sagittarius adds to things. It blows it up. It expands upon it. It's like go big in the, it just go big. So I thought, well, it's already going big because it's in Saggy. And so we kind of already expect to be surprised, shocking communications or surprising things that we're hearing about on the news, within social media, or just different communications from people, sudden change of plans, possibly, sudden change of plans for the future. That's Sagittarius, the future. So keep that in mind, because we're talking about Mercury being out of bounds, starting out of bounds at 8 degrees in Saggy. That's where she began. Now, what's interesting is that I don't want to make this complicated, but Mercury does do a retrograde, right? So I'm going to have the videos up. If you haven't already seen them, I will put them below, or vice versa. Whichever one gets published first on the channel, I'll link it right under the video so you can pair them up together, because there's just so much to talk about. I think it's a little bit easier to kind of digest it a little bit at a time. But knowing Mercury's retrograde on this chart, I've kind of got this drawn out. You see here, I've got Cirrus. The blue line is right there, right? Here's Cirrus. That looks like a backwards question mark. That's Cirrus. It's food. Okay. It's how I get nurtured. It's food that is traveling, right? Transportation, in airplanes, even food for foreigners, foreign lands, foreign countries, right? So we heard talks, right? Talks about striking up some sort of a deal between Palestine and Israel, right? And so that whole thing, and so that all of this made sense. All of this makes sense, because Mercury is the transportation, right? It's like, okay, we're in vehicles, convoy type of thing. Yeah, totally can be convoy thing, because it's go big. Mercury's go big. Now, the blue line. What does the blue line mean? The blue line shows you, if you look, where's Mercury on that blue line? It goes all the way here to 8 degrees. All right. So the Mercury out of bounds was from 8 degrees of Saggy to 8 degrees in Capricorn. And so what you're looking for in your chart, like if you're really into the details and you really want to go and nitpick, which is kind of what it's doing. But for some of us, it's not nitpicking if we're like, oh my God, I had a blow up conversation with somebody last week. And when I say blow up, I don't mean it in a good way. Or I should say maybe a blowout. Like we had a conversation and things went really crazy. I don't know what happened, but one thing led to another. And just like that, all of a sudden we're not talking. So there can be explanations for these things, because between 8 degrees of Saggy and 8 degrees of Capricorn, you could have stuff that angles it, right? In Virgo at 8 degrees, down here, 8 degrees, or not even at 8. Remember, it's between 8 degrees in Saggy and 8 degrees of Capricorn. So that's a lot of degrees. That means 8 degrees of Virgo and 8 degrees of Libra. So that's really kind of where you're looking in your chart. What kind of news, what kind of information did you get during that time? What kind of conversations did you have? Who did you meet? Was there something upsetting? Was there something that like you made a plan for and all of a sudden it's like tentative, or it's changing and you're not sure about it, or there's confusion? Bottom line, confusion. Remember, Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Saggy. So wherever Jupiter is, because it expands things and it can exaggerate things, there can be confusion involved. Okay, we sometimes illusions and delusions, we would even say, because this is also the ancient ruler of Neptune energy, right? And so a lot of those same keywords we will notice in our life if we pay attention, right? If we're aware enough, right? And that's just it. You could pay attention, but if you're not aware, the damn tree could fall and you didn't hear it. That's just that simple. It could be raining outside and you had no idea, right? So if we pay attention, you notice the lines blur, the meanings and the words and the definitions, right? Because multiple planets rule multiple signs, not just one sign. And so that's where I know it gets confusing. So to clarify, because I know I've just probably made it even more confusing by going super deep, I'm going to outline the Mercury 8 degrees in Cappy to Mercury 8 degrees in Saggy, because this is a square. And I'm just going to draw a big ass square right there for you. And I'm going to leave it solid. It's just the easiest way. Big ass square. So that's Saggy and Virgo to also Capricorn and then Libra, because Mercury moves and it's a fast mover and it's going retrograde. You see that? And it's going to go back to these degrees, but not all the way to 8. That's the good news. When Mercury goes backwards, it goes to 22 degrees of Saggy, and that's where it stops. Now, I'm only giving all the details to explain the complexity of all this, because this isn't all of it. We also we'll be dealing with some combust issues. Combust, which means, well, I'm going to explain it to you in a minute. Let me get there. Before I talk about that, I'm going to draw the lines for the square from Pisces at 8 degrees, to Aries at 8 degrees. Okay. And that line goes there. So I'm just going to draw that like that. Get my little square on for the other, just like I did for the other one. Oh, my square does not look great, but that's okay. I'll extend it and go like that. All right. So you see, so the Saggy also squares Pisces. That's right. At those degrees. And then that same Saggy, or that same Mercury, as it moves into Cappy, it then squares cardinal Aries. Okay. So actually that would be here, because Aries is only to 8. All right. So that's those angles. And so again, traveling, communications. So this is letters, like if you're writing a letter or a text message or an email, news of any kind, travel plans, right? Now, because it squares Virgo, and that's home and your health. I got a lot of people. I know quite a few people on the channel in the last couple of weeks complaining of headaches, not feeling good, just under the weather, right? And so maybe you guys have some strong Mercury issues anyway in your chart normally. But Mercury going out of bounds, right? Especially, it's with Jupiter. So it's Mercury going out of bounds. And then Jupiter had already expanded upon things. So it could have made things difficult. And my hope is that this video can at least maybe lend some understanding for that. Now, what's going to happen after this? I have some other dates written down, and I want you to see these dates. And yeah, can you see them? All right. So the other dates I have here talk about the combust. Okay. So what's interesting and difficult is we have a Mercury that's going wild, literally Mercury gone wild, because in the beginning up here, it was not only a Mercury out of bounds being extreme, but it then had Jupiter influencing it to go home, to go big or go home type of energy, really big, right? And then it goes into Cappy, so it gets a little bit more restricted, and it might be a little bit more balanced, right? But then it ends being out of bounds on the 13th. Okay, now the next date on here, we're going to change up colors, and I'm going to minimize a little bit because I know that's a little too much. The next date on here is the 17th. Okay, I want you to take a look at my Mercury that I have drawn over here in the corner. It's Mercury with one antenna up, and maybe not even one antenna. It really should be like half of one antenna. She's missing her other one. So when I tell you Mercury is combust during these dates, we know that we have a Mercury that's functioning at half of her abilities. Okay. So all of a sudden, the mind slows down, the communications slow down. All of a sudden, you might even feel like you're in a fog, like your brain is in sort of a fog, or it's restrictive even. Or for some of us, there might even kind of feel, there might be a little bit of, I don't want to say depressing thoughts, but if Mercury is while the time Mercury is in Capricorn, it can feel that way. But yet when it's in Saggy, it's usually adventurous and optimistic. Now, this only lasts You see the dates? December 17th to December 26th, 27th. This is just a 10-day period that Mercury is under this combust influence. Okay. So it just means that the mind isn't working real well. So if you are talking to people or your devices, remember Mercury is the cell phone, is the laptop, it's your handheld devices, right? The smaller devices, the things that we go like this with, right? Those end up anything we use to communicate on the regular. Okay. So whether it's texting or phone calls, snail mail, regular mail, um, like things could not work so well. So it's like we go from an abundance of Mercury power, like the mind working really fast and chains. Oh, wow. You're experiencing it with me right now, plans changing and us having to be flexible. And then Capricorn, which is all about starting stuff, right? So it's very jarring. It can be very jarring, okay, and can feel unsettling. So to just go over one last time, we feel like we have an abundance of mind power, and for some of you, maybe difficulty sleeping during this period, difficulty, like establishing a daily routine, possibly our daily routines being switched up, likely, very much so. And then all of a sudden, Mercury, even though your routines can still be kind of messed with, because Mercury will go back into Saggy, okay? It will go back into Saggy. But by the 26th, it's no longer in that combust mode. It's no longer in its debilitated mode. It's functioning better. And so that's like the 26th, 27th or after. Make sense? So that's just to kind of say there might be a remarkable difference. So if you guys are going through difficulties for this time while Mercury, November 15th to December 13th, anything with the mind or with sleep, daily health routines and whatnot, there will be a change upcoming. Okay. And it might seem extreme because it was like all of a sudden really, really busy. All of a sudden, my mind was just like lightning speed. All of a sudden, I had a thirst to learn, to talk, to communicate. And then all of a sudden, it felt restrictive. Maybe even to the degree where my social media wasn't working. I'm pressing send and I can't email, I can't snail mail. My laptop shut down. Like there could be weird things like that happen for sure, right? It's Mercury retrograding too. You follow? Yeah, it's Mercury in its shadow zone. And so that's what makes the combust dates, December 17th to December 26th, a little bit tricky. It makes it complicated, it makes it complex. Okay? So that's it. Thank you for your time. If you're still here, just know I appreciate you. Happy holidays and take care. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.